So I haven't made a Digimon video in quite some time now. The first one I made still remains my most popular video on the channel, and I haven't done much with Digimon in almost 3 years. But we're gonna try now. It's actually kind of an interesting time for me to come back into Digimon, or try to get into Digimon rather. I just bought the Beelzemon Advanced deck, and lo and behold, the game is getting a massive update. One of the major updates is that Bandai is officially supporting mulligan. You draw your first 5 cards, look at it, and say, I don't really like this hand. And you simply shuffle it back in and try again. But you can only do this once. This takes effect on April 1st, which is this Saturday. And several people have pointed out the date that it's on April Fool's Day. April Fool's doesn't exist in Japan. This is real. There's been some controversy surrounding this new change. There's an argument that can be made that Digimon really doesn't need a mulligan like in Pokemon, because you do technically have playable cards in your opening hand. You don't need to play a rookie just to start the game. Here's how I look at it. On the very few occasions I actually did play this game casually, I chose not to mulligan. And that was simply because of the spirit of the game and how the creators intended for the game to be played. But I agree, you should be able to mulligan your hand, simply because you can draw a hand of Megas that cost 13 memory to play, and options that you can't use because you don't have either a Tamer or a Digimon on the board. And since the memory gauge only goes up to 10, and you start at 0 on your opening turn, there's not really much you can really do. Personally, I think every card game should have a mulligan of some sort. And up until now, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Digimon were really the only two that did not have a mulligan mechanic. And now, because of this new update, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the odd child out simply because of anime reasons. They don't mulligan in the anime, it's all in the heart of the cards, baby! Genuinely though, I really wish I could mulligan, just so that I could put a Union Driver back into my deck. If we could mulligan Union Driver, the debate about 1 or 2 drivers would be officially over. Speaking about Yu-Gi-Oh!, you would be pretty hard-pressed to find a deck these days that did not include hand traps. So far, I've really only heard of this term in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community. And there are some instances in Magic and Flesh and Blood, from my understanding, that you can use on your opponent's turn, kind of like a hand trap, but not really. But that all changes with Ace cards, a new mechanic that has a counter effect and a burst evolution mechanic. So what are counter effects? They are interactions you can do with your opponent when they try to attack. The flow of battle is this. Your opponent declares an attack, and then any on-attack effects resolve. Then you have the opportunity to play a counter effect, which is pretty much just locked into burst evolutions at this point, but more on that later. Then you can block your opponent's attack if you have a blocker. Then Digimon Battle and security effects go off. Battle in Digimon is getting almost as complicated as the damage step in Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of, but not really. And as I mentioned, counter effects are attached to burst evolutions. With these burst evolutions, you can evolve your Digimon for no cost to potentially block your opponent's attack, like in the case of Metal Greymon Ace. In the case of Metal Garurumon, you can trash up to 3 cards from your hand to gain that much memory. But these Digimon come at a cost via overflow, where you lose a certain amount of memory depending on the Digimon's level. In the case of War Greymon and Metal Garurumon, you lose 4 memory from overflow if they leave the field by bouncing, spinning, or your opponent putting it in the trash. But if you evolve your Ace Digimon, it comes from the raising area, or if it comes from an evolution source, the overflow will not trigger. I'm not quite sure how that evolution source thing works. Again, I haven't really played in like 3 years, but I'm sure I'll figure that out once I go to a local tournament. Honestly, I'm slightly conflicted about calling these hand traps. They're more like opening up interactions on your opponent's turn. When I think of hand traps, I think of cards like Ash Blossom and Infinite Impermanence to completely stop a line of play so that your opponent doesn't get a giant board of Omni Negates. and you don't just lose because you didn't draw into the Dark Ruler or the Droplet. At the moment, all ace cards activate during battle. They're not stopping your opponent from making a giant board, but rather creating a way to respond to an already made board. That's not just like a blowout card like Evenly Matched or Dark Ruler No More. So, Hand Trap, yes, but their use is different. You're not holding on to a War Greymon Ace to negate a mill effect by Beelzebubmon and to choke them out of their plays, or to go into battle phase and say end a battle phase and drop a Metal Garurumon Ace because you control no cards. Basically, ace cards are a way to cockroach your way back into the game if you're in a losing position. And the ace cards can be defeated in security battle because Metal Garurumon and War Greymon respectively have 11,000 DP. Which, I know that seems ridiculously high for Yu-Gi-Oh players, but it's really not that high for a mega level. Anyways, wish me luck as I attempt to go to a Digimon local after Yu-Gi-Oh burnout. My name is Vincent, and I am the Race Duelist. Goodbye.